Inspiralia. Inspiralia is a global innovation company. So Inspiralia USA is based in Miami, Florida, and the mothership, the global company's headquarters is in Madrid, Spain. Okay. So our track records, I mean, we've been around in the US since 2005 and have helped over we have helped fund over 1,000 projects by now. These numbers aren't quite up to date anymore. This is over 1,000 now. Some are pending, but they're basically funded, helping our customers raise over $500 million. And so our bandwidth, so we have 50 project managers, what we call innovation consultants, and each project manager can lead one team basically for one project, one grant basically. So in case you're wondering whether we have bandwidth to work on your proposal, the answer is yes, we most certainly do. So SBIR STTR it's the largest and the most important source of federal R&D grants in the US. The budget annually is over $4 billion, and while the money is allocated by the Small Business Administration, there is a whole range of federal agencies that actually disperse the money. So everyone from the Department of Agriculture, Department of Defense, NASA, National Science Foundation, you name it. So they don't. So these are not loans. Okay, these are grants. Okay, but it takes zero equity, meaning you don't dilute your present your present cap table, so to speak. How does it work? So there are two main phases, and phase 3 is an optional phase. You don't always have that. So in phase one, it's meant as proof of concept, right? So you wanna do. So they want you to put the most risky part of your research work, of your R&D work, into phase 1, right? It's shorter. The funds are smaller, right? From 50,000 to it's actually over 300,000 now. Takes half a year to a year, and again, so this is more R than D, right? This is more research than development in phase 1. Phase 2, after proving the concept that it can work. In phase 2, you're meant to scale it. So it's still kind of a proof of concept, but you're scaling up your project at that point, right? You get more money for it. It's less risky, and I mean most phase 2s follow a successful phase 1, right? Now, if you got a phase 1, you're working on your phase 1, and then of course even if it's successful, even if the results are great, you still have to apply for a phase 2. But obviously, if the phase 1 went really well, then your chances of getting a phase 2 they're really great. Yeah. And again, sometimes there's phase 3, and these are really special topics. So if someone has a question about phase 3 afterwards, that's probably outside the scope of this webinar, actually. So is it a fit? Is it a fit for your company? Yeah. So I'm just checking. Yeah. Okay. Is it a fit? There are formal requirements. Of course, it's funded by a federal agency, so it's ultimately funded by the U.S. taxpayer. So there are some requirements. So at least 50% need to be owned by U.S. citizens or permanent residents. Okay, which of course means that you can be a totally non-U.S. company, and can be a minority, basically owner in a joint venture with a U.S. company in case because we have a very international audience, right? So there are ways to to play here, but again, it needs to be led by a US-based company. So you should have certainly by the time of by the period of performance, they call it the period of performance, meaning when you do the actual research work. So by that time, basically everyone who gets paid directly needs to be a W-2 employee. Not necessarily at the time of application, but at the time when you get the money, you should have your ducks in a row and be ready to hire the staff you're proposing to hire. Facilities is another, so you should have facilities. Now here there's considerable leeway. So I mean, we have gotten companies funded that basically that were, I mean, a couple of undergrads in a shared student apartment, and they were basically renting space in a co-working space, right? So and we got them funded. So this is viewed a little less strict, right? So then up to 1/3 of the activities can be subcontracted, which means that you have to do 2/3 of the work yourself. There is no way around that. The next one is really important. All the R&D needs to take place on US soil, right? So yeah. The last one, of course, this is the demographics of the technology workforce in the US. So we get that question a lot, but there's really no disadvantage if you're a green card holder versus a US citizen within this program. Okay. For some reason it does not like to advance right now. Okay, now it advances. So, the way again, as mentioned, there's a range of federal agencies, and they have deadlines throughout the year, right? And all of these agencies, the 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 applying to all of these agencies is very different. One is very different from the other, right? So there's the NSF, for example, which is one example. I'm gonna go into it a little bit more detail in this webinar, versus AFREX, which is an Air Force program, which I'm also going to present on. They're radically different, completely different technology readiness level. So they're all different from each other, right? So that means if you end up, or if we end up working together with US Venture, we would you will get assigned a team that has people with expertise in the specific agency you're looking for. So you're not going to get a generic tech writer who has no technical background. So it's actually you get subject matter experts. So here are some deadlines. Again, NSF, National Science Foundation. Now, for those of you who have academic backgrounds, the grant format is going to look most familiar for the NSF. NSF traditionally, of course, comes from culturally very much from the physical sciences, although they fund a lot of software, cybersecurity projects and whatnot also. So the NSF has definitely the broadest range of funding topics among all agencies. Then there is the Department of Energy. It's more narrowly funded. Part of their research is certainly has been in the nuclear field. So it's we actually don't do a lot of DOE grants. So for obvious reasons. Another large agency, NIH, National Institutes of Health, everything from pharmaceuticals to, medical devices, and they have tracks for both clinical and without clinical trials. So the most agencies other than the NIH don't allow clinical trials, human trials. So that's only the NIH. So yeah, so and basically, yeah, both the NSF and the NIH have typically, not necessarily every year, there have been exceptions, COVID and whatnot, but typically there are three application windows a year, right? And with the NSF, the next one's coming up and the NIH also. They're coming up in March, April, then the next one in June, right, for the NSF. And here you see the phase one and phase two at the bottom here. You see the awards, right? So, because I'm often we're getting the remark that these grants, because there's still the prejudice that these grants don't pay very much. Yes, indeed, like 10, 15 years ago they used to be quite small, but now they've grown. It's pretty significant now. I think for most startups, probably even a phase one, but definitely a phase two, it will make a difference, right? So yeah, a few more agencies, Department of Agriculture, EPA. They only have these are smaller agencies in grant world. They only have one deadline a year. The USDA just well, it's actually coming up in a week or a week and a half. So obviously, way too late to get in, right? It takes a while to get ready. Then Department of Defense. Department of Defense is probably the most complicated one in terms of in terms of deadlines, because there is really there's really very little that the Department of Defense as an umbrella organization dispenses in terms of grants. It's mostly it's mostly Air Force, Army, basically it's Navy obviously. DARPA also. DARPA has grants. So yeah. So okay. So okay. Let's dive into the first example. So that's AFROX, right? AFROX is one of the it's probably the most active. It's probably the most active in terms of number of applicants, the most active track within the DoD. It's it's they wanted to they wanted to foster many small technological bets. So what's nice about what's unique about AFROX is the application timelines are very short, and also the period of performance for phase one is also very short to prove the concept basically. So your period of performance takes 3 months, and basically when you apply for AFROX, you will find you will get the result typically within 60 days. So this is I mean lightning fast for the federal government. So here, what you do during phase one for the AFROX, as opposed to most other agencies, you typically don't do actual research work in the lab or on the computer, whatever you're doing. Typically, those 3 months they're spent, looking for a defense fit within the Department of the Air Force, right? So it obviously, if you, of course, there is no search engine or anything like that where you can look for, hey, who in the Air Force does, I don't know, solar panels or power systems, right? So there is no such thing. So you kind of have to know the Air Force. And this is, of course, where a company like Inspiralia comes in, right? So we have, of course, we have a network of consultants, essentially former Air Force service members, also, former reviewers, civilian employees, scientists. So we pretty much any given any given venture, any given technology project, if it's a fit for the Air Force, then we pretty much know who to present it to ultimately. Okay. So of course that speed and that fast pace, it does make up a little bit for the fact that the phase one award is only 75,000. Of course, the phase two, that's real money, right? That's up to 21 months then. Now, of course, one remark I'd like to make, and I may make that on multiple occasions. Basically, when you look at these grants, you shouldn't just look at at the actual grant money, at the actual award, right? So because I mean, even getting, I mean, companies that get awarded even just the phase one AFREX, right? They typically, if you publicize that, so typically we see companies raising 5 and 10 times that, just based on the fact, hey, they're funded. Of course, you're going to tell everybody, hey, we just got an Air Force grant, and who cares if it's only 75,000, right? So the fact that the Air Force funds you, and this is the first, the the first step in a journey with the Air Force that potentially, because if the phase two is also successful, right, then you not only have you know have your project funded, you also have a potential customer, which is the Air Force, which is why they're funding these grants, right? So the Air Force has a wide range of focus areas, from admin, general areas, IT, mission readiness. So you don't really see any weapon systems here, right? So this is an important comment to make, right? So in terms of eligibility, I mean, you don't need to have a government clearance to look at confidential documents or anything to apply for these. The same standards as for all other SBIR basically applies. And so again, it's these are dual use technologies. So we see for the Air Force, we see everything from energy technologies to obviously propulsion, just generic propulsion, to uh, uh, human performance, right? Which could include medical topics, medical devices, mental health, right? So we've done it all. So here is again a funnel. This is a different diagram, different visual, basically confirming the same topic, right? So phase one again. So you have, if you see the top box here, top block, uh, phase one they still call it feasibility study, but it's a feasibility study in the sense that you're presenting your technology use case to different entities within the Air Force, helped by us, obviously. And if that works, then you get to apply for a phase two, which is also really quick, right? It's also a couple months. Then in phase two, you know so you actually scale up, right? So just like with the other programs. So then StratFi, TagFi, these are add-on funds. Phase three also, these are special topics, but rest assured, I mean, with phase two, it doesn't necessarily end. There's if they're interested in your technology, there's always a follow-up. Okay, there's always another grant. So here, this is a timeline of basically the last open topic, the last AFREX open topic. So the deadline was early October, I think October 10th, as far as I recall, or 11th. So then, everybody had to and we had a large cohort. I mean, we got almost 40 AFREX phase one grants in. And of course, so early to mid-December, we all got the results, and some were happy, and are basically essentially in or passing due diligence now. Okay, so due diligence, it's something that's going on after the initial review, right? So if they like your proposal, they like your technology, you're going into due diligence. Okay, due diligence means in an SBIR context, due diligence means they can ask you any questions. So any claim you make in the proposal, from technology readiness to people's resumes or CVs, right? I mean, they can ask you anything and ask for documentation for anything, right? So here you really need to be on top of your game, right? Because once you got the initial approval, it's yours to lose. Okay, once you started due diligence, it's really important that you don't make any mistakes, right? And again, so it's very helpful to have a company such as us who've done this a few times before, right? It de-risks things a lot. Then there is a 3 month, the yellow box. There's phase one execution, which takes 3 months, and during those 3 months, you're mainly discussing, you're exchanging technical information with Air Force stakeholders. So they call it stakeholders, right? So you need after those 3 months, you need to have identified stakeholders. You need to have identified an end user and a customer, and a technical point of contact, right? These three persons. Two of them can be the same, right? So, but basically, the end user it's preferably some sort of Air Force base. They like to see that somebody in some sort of some base, some unit that's deployed somewhere, let's say, right? So then the technical point of contact can be anybody, can be, Air Force Research Lab, right? I mean, the Air Force has a research lab. They are they're fun to work with, right? I mean, it's basically like a national lab, right? So anyway, so if that works out, so there's a review process that's projected for April, and during that review process, you apply for phase two funding. So, and the next cohort will start, the next successful cohort will start their phase two funding sometime in May. Okay. Now, of course, this is already ongoing, right? For the next year, 2025, the Air Force has not published. It has published quite little, actually. I think we expect we expect probably possibly in January, more likely in February for the follow up to for the 2025 topics to be published. There are some special topics out, but quite few actually at this point. Okay, who's the ideal candidate for AFROX? Basically, AFROX, again, they're a little bit different from other agencies in that respect. Most other agencies they really prefer, technically riskier proposals for which you would not necessarily find funding on the open market. The Air Force is a little different, so they want more mature companies with at least a demonstrated MVP. So they would prefer if you have some sort of prototype out in the world used by somebody, at least a paid prototype. Okay, so TRL is typically higher, and so therefore the number of employees are you typically see they usually have several employees, right? It's so sort of 2, 3 person teams. It's not as common, but of course, if the technology is impactful, I mean, it's definitely everything can work, right? Again, here it's important to it's dual use technology. So these are not weapon systems. Okay, so they're actually excluded from this program. So anyone can apply, anyone who is who meets the company requirements otherwise. So here, so you need to the Air Force, an important aspect of Air Force FRX grants, you need to match operational imperatives of the Air Force, right? So obviously not all of these imperatives are equally present in most proposals we see. I mean, I have to say the plurality of the proposals I tend to see is in a resilient basing, because that includes the whole umbrella of all energy systems, basically, for example, and yeah. Okay, so what's in an AFROX proposal? So it's a whole bunch of documentation. Obviously, all of these proposals, they require a pretty formidable documentation package, and of course, nothing should be wrong, right? So this is basically like applying for a job. If you make a typo in the cover letter, you're probably out. And the same thing here. So it's really important that all of these are in perfect order and in perfect shape. So here on the left, what's what I've listed the core components, the core parts of a proposal. One item is it's the technical volume. The technical volume with the Air Force with AFREX is actually a pitch deck. So it looks on first glance, it looks a little bit like an extended pitch deck. Many startups have. It's a minimum of 11 slides, up to 25 slides. Then budget, that's an Excel form. Again, this is really it's tricky. The budget is simple, but it's got some pitfalls to make sure that you shouldn't you should only propose items which are okay to fund. Otherwise, again, you get rejected, right? If you propose something that's not fundable. Team CVs, resumes, of course, super important. The team is important, and also letters of support. Letters of support are non-committing letters from persons who have a reason to be knowledgeable in that field. So here the slide deck again, the slide deck, aka technical volume. It's really a slide deck, right? And the basic template, you can download it. There isn't much useful in it. So it has 11 required slides, and it can have up to 25 slides. You can beyond the required slides, you can elaborate as you wish. And so I mean, obviously there are some slides which you would not see in a normal startup pitch deck in a long form pitch deck. I mean, very important. The defense need is probably the most important thing. So basically, the proposal needs to match some sort of real Air Force need. So this is here. I've got a ranking. So this is again. I should have started with the disclaimer. Everything that is said here is not advice you should take to the bank, right? So especially this slide. So because there are to everything I'm saying, there is of course there are some rules, some guidelines, but to most advice I'm giving here, there are always exceptions, right? It's how it is. But this, I would say, this slide, I would say, fits the vast majority of proposals I've worked with, and I've seen pass, basically winning proposal. For AFREX, for the Air Force, and actually generally for the Department of Defense, the number one is the number one objective is matching the defense needs, right? And again, this is really where I mean, of course, if you know tons of people in the Air Force, maybe you can effectively write that proposal yourself. But this is something, if you don't have any experience in the defense sector, then definitely having us on as wing persons, can I say that, is definitely helpful. So then organization and quality of the proposal it's important for the Air Force. Also knowledge of the Air Force structure. It's basically proposal fit, right? So because they expect you to come up with a plan how to integrate your technology with the Air Force. Team composition and experience, and then commercial scalability of the technology. So that's it's also important. It should so what you develop for the Air Force specifically, it should not be DoD specific, right? So they want the reason they have these programs is they want to harness non-defense commercial technologies to cut costs within the Air Force, because of course they know that the military knows that for any even non-defense items, they will spend more money than the commercial sector will. Okay, so the next one, okay, so this was AFWERX. The next one is NSF, the National Science Foundation. Again, it's kind of at the opposite spectrum, right? So whereas the Air Force was, there was a pitch deck at the center. Much of an AFWERX proposal looks and feels more like, more like an application to a pitch competition, maybe. Of course, it's still very different, but at least it looks more like that. NSF, very, very different. It's really the opposite, right? So again, you have three phases. Phase one, phase two, and then there's phase 2B. I mean, that's any phase three, phase 2B. These are special topics. Phase one and two are what's important, right? And again, the risky part, the risky components of the R&D should be in phase one. So they don't wanna spend money on scale up before the risky part of the research has been proven. Projects are evaluated. So this is the order how projects are evaluated within the NSF. So the number one is intellectual merit, right? So the NSF culturally comes from academia and specifically the physical sciences, right? And that's how everything is still organized very much, right? Uh, so um so intellectual merits. So again, so they want the paramount principle is they only fund projects that have a high degree of technical risk. Basically, that are not typically not fundable by a smaller startup in the open market, right? So it's typically, oftentimes deep tech or again, very fundamental proposals which you wouldn't be able to raise money typically, right? Then number two is commercialization potential, right? Now this is an area where we see many of our customers struggle, right? Because of course the NSF, a lot of companies applying for NSF grants, they're run by scientists, they're run by engineers. So basically, people who are not necessarily all that good at writing a business plan, right? But of course, any gaps we have here, we're going to do our best to help you, right? I mean, we're not gonna generate science for you, but we would take what you have available. We would take your resources and basically present them in the best light possible. And then, of course, at the bottom here, it's broader impacts, right? So, basically, it should make the world a better place. And of course, if you have taxpayer funded, it should make primarily the United States a better place. But everybody else it's nice to have. So the schedule. So these are some recent schedules. So so there are three. Yeah, they're actually these are actually upcoming. They're upcoming application windows. March 5th is the next one upcoming, and then July. And then there's the next solicitation coming. So that's July is the last one in this present solicitation. Okay. And I mean the way you apply for an NSF grant. The NSF has something most agencies don't have. They want you to submit um, a project pitch, right? So basically, so if you want to submit a full proposal to the NSF, you need to be invited. The way to get invited to submit a proposal to the NSF, you need to submit a project pitch. A project pitch is basically a mini proposal. It's a total of 2,000 words, and covers four different topics. It's, I mean, if you work with if you're with a startup and you have applied for, you know, pitch competitions in online forums, this format will be very familiar with you because it's quite similar actually, right? So what the NSF tries to do here is they try to make sure that only companies and projects that are actually fundable get submitted as full proposals. If they say that your pitch your project pitch it's not, it doesn't indicate that it would generate a fundable proposal, they will advise you to, again, maybe rethink your project plan, rethink your proposal, right? Because they want to avoid that their reviewers waste time, and especially they want to avoid frustration on the part of the startups, on the part of the applicants. Okay, so writing an NSF proposal takes time, right? It's typically we have I mean so we would like to have, combining everything, we would like to have 8 to 9 weeks. Of course, it's not always as strictly regulated as in this slide, right? Sometimes there are more iterations, sometimes there are fewer, and really every customer, every company is a little bit different. But typically, again, we would like to have several weeks. Not it doesn't have to be. It's not always 8 to 9 weeks, but I wouldn't do it in a shorter than, let's say, if you're a new client, we haven't worked with you, we would like to have at least 6 weeks, I would say, to make sure that we have a proposal we're happy with, and we're happy that you're going to have a good chance to win. So the writing process, right? So Inspiralia, the way Inspiralia's business model works is, we our we most I mean there's a small writing fee, there's a small entry fee, but by far most of our you know most of our income is aligned with yours. We for the most part we only get paid if your proposal is successful, right? So that means, of course, that means we must validate that your proposal actually has a chance of winning, because if you don't win, we also lose money, right? So this is good. So that means if we if we don't think you can win, we're not going to work with you, right? So that's so that's our principle, that's our mission statement, if you will. Okay, again, so first there's a project pitch. It's typically about 3 pages, like I said, up to 2,000 words. Then there is proposal. We write a proposal, we submit the proposal, of course. And then the applications, you know, it undergoes merit review, and this can take quite a while, right? So there are due diligence questions sometime in between, right? So this whole process takes, it can take up to 7 months, 7, 9 months, basically, until a proposal is fully, and until you have the money, basically, from submission. Okay, so that's the drawback for NSF, right? It's one of the slower agencies, and so, but of course, it's that's one more reason to start early, right? And I mean, typically these are sort of long term R&D projects. Okay, here again, project pitch, right? Project pitch has four components: technical innovation, the R&D work, basically the project plan. That's number two. Three is customer profile and unmet needs, and four is basically the team. You're presenting the company and the team. So the structure, the overall proposal, you have project summary. These are different. These are different components of the document package. The most important one again is also the project description, right? The project description is the equivalent to the technical volume, to basically the slide deck in AFROX. It's 15 pages, and really it's 15 pages of publication. Typically these project descriptions, the the standards, the quality standards are very high. So basically equivalent to a peer review publication essentially. So yeah, so again, this is the project description. It's one page. I mean, there's I mean this is there's templates with rough guidelines, and of course you can always, depending on your individual orientation, you can always break the templates a little bit. That's okay. Sometimes it's needed. But typically, there is a one-page elevator mix, commercial opportunity. Then there is a technical solution presented to a non-technical audience. Then you present the company and team, and then the intellectual merits. That goes really deep, right? So that has the project plan included, and ultimately broader impacts that's benefit to society. Who's the ideal candidate for the NSF? Again, the NSF almost complementary to AFROX. The ideal candidate is typically we see earlier stage companies. Okay, they oftentimes science-based, oftentimes traditionally there's still a little bit of a bias towards hardware-based startups, but they found plenty of software-based startups, especially in fields such as cryptography and whatnot. TRL, technology readiness level, is it's a bit lower, right? It's also typically these companies are smaller. Again, here unofficial unofficial guideline. What's most important in an NSF grant? Really the most important part here is they want this research to be new to the world. Okay, so it's definitely more R than D in R&D. Okay, so then scientific quality of the project description. Okay, so the project description needs to read and look like a peer review paper, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, of course, we will, again, I mean, a lot of scientists, engineers, they're not necessarily the best writers, but we can definitely help you on the writing part. Also important, team composition and experience, right? So, and for it's safe to say that for the NSF, academic credentials are more important than for the Air Force. It kind of makes sense, right? Sound business plan, right? That's often a problem for scientists, for deep tech founders. Partner ecosystem, i.e., letters of supports, are important, and facilities. Whereas facilities, it depends, right? I mean, if depends what you're doing. I mean, if it's based in I mean, it can be if it's software, then you don't need a lot of facilities, obviously. Okay, so as Inspiralia, our services, right? So we again we provide the whole range, right? So we if you have a technology venture and you would like some advice, which funding opportunities your technology lends itself, we can work with you. On the other hand, we if you have a very specific topic in mind, and you just need help, just quote unquote need help to put together the proposal, submit it to the NSF, to the NIH, and so forth. We're happy to do either. Also, once we submit the proposal, we're gonna stay with you, right? We accompany you on the administrative side. We make sure that everything you propose, let's say on the budget, is actually it's actually legitimate, that there's nothing that'll trip you up at the end of the day. And we make sure your budget is it's balanced the way it's balanced towards the item they like to see, right? These things change, they're different for different agencies. So yeah, but this is again lots of pitfalls, but we'll keep you out of those. And of course, we never guarantee that anyone wins, but certainly if we end up working together, we certainly believe in you. Okay, that's clear. That's a clear sign. So each proposal, during each proposal, we put together a team of at least 4 people, a senior innovation consultant, that's basically the person leading it all. Okay, then there is the scientific writer and account manager and project management office, right? So again, we make sure, and of course there are consultants and subject matter experts for different agencies we have access to. And especially for agencies such as the DoD, we have a pretty large database of contacts. Okay, so there's some previous case studies. One of them was in a movie. I I hope you saw. I hope it worked. If not, just send me an email and I'll send you a link. And so we'll send out. I'll get the participant list from Rob, and we'll send out this slide deck to all of the participants, plus a recording of this webinar also. Okay, so this is my name, email address, phone number. Okay, don't call me